Welcome to the Black on Shelf podcast, a podcast championing Black and Brown entrepreneurs on the digital and physical shelves. I'm your host, Tanaj Ferguson. This is Black on Shelf. So we are here with Julissa Prado of Rizos Curls. And if you've been following her on Instagram, she is everything, okay? The life of the party, killing it at Ulta, bringing the whole band, the horse. So yeah, I basically have encouraged you to go check her out. If you haven't already, I know many of you have, but we get a chance today to sit and learn about her background and how this amazing Latina woman who is full of flavor, flair, innovation, has really, how have you gotten here? That's what we really want to understand. There's so much of your story that's so approachable. We feel like we can do it too. And you've brought us along this journey of you building the brand. We appreciate it. We appreciate you being here. Talk to us about your background and welcome to Black on Shelf. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here today. So I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I grew up with a really big family. People are always like, "Oh, your family's so close." I'm like, "Yeah, we are so close that when we were growing up, we all lived in like one apartment building. Every unit was like a family member. So our cousins and I would like walk to the store together. Like there would be like baptisms and first communions. There is even a wedding on the backyard of our apartment building. Like that is how close we grew up. So it's no doubt that, they've been following and been with me through this journey. Most of the models on my website when I first started were my cousins and I. Like the first headquarters of Rizos Curls was my Tío Juan's garage on Washington Crenshaw. All the fulfillment was like all my little cousins. The drawing on my bottle, my cousin drew it. My brother works hand in hand with me. Like my family is very, very intertwined with Rizos Curls.
Wow. We got to get into that too, because, I definitely have actually had a lot of folks on the podcast talk about how they are in business with family. And I think that is something we've heard never to do. And I could say in this season, it's something that many people have done. And I know in other communities, it's not, people don't run away from that. And I think there is a way to do business well with your family. And maybe you could tell us some of the things that work and some of the things to watch out for. So we'll definitely get to that part too, because I love that you have included your whole family in a number of ways in different parts of your business and your growth. That's phenomenal. So you grew up in LA and you have this big family. Where does hair come into the picture? Tell us about the origins of your brand.
Yeah. So I think especially within the Latino community, there's like such a wide variety of like hair textures, skin tones, like there's just so much going on there. And just within my own family, there's literally so much like diversity in the hair textures. Like I have aunts with wavy hair. I have aunts with like super coily hair. I have people in the middle. Like there's such a variety, but I grew up seeing all these different variety of textures. And when I tell you, everybody would go through great lengths to straighten it.
Yeah.
And whether we were struggling or not, like people found a way.
The hair was popping.
Make sure their hair was super straight and you would never know, like, that they had this beautiful texture underneath of it. And that was kind of my case too. I grew up, I remember the very first time I got my hair straightened, flat irons were like expensive and kind of like, for my texture, I'm like, you could have flat ironed your hair. No, my cousins put my head over an ironing board and used a clothes iron, literally to iron your clothes, and ironed my hair straight. And that was the very first time that I ever got my hair straightened. It wasn't at a salon. It wasn't nothing professional.
It was the iron.
It was literally the clothes iron. And I just remember that day I received so many compliments. Like I had never got a compliment on my hair before. And back then I was like very little and skinny and my hair was just like huge. It was just huge because I was just this little girl and my texture was even tighter back then. And it was just like it was just a lot of hair on a little kid. So I had never received any compliments, nothing. But when I got my hair straightened, what? Like I
Feeling
had,
myself, feeling myself.
oh my God, I was 10 years old, had heard so many compliments and I was addicted. I'm like, I want to hear this many compliments forever. So that's where my journey to like be so obsessed with straightening my hair started.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I was like going through great lengths to like always have my hair straightened and damaging it so much. So that's kind of like how I was. And then when I started trying to wear my hair natural, it was a journey trying to figure out like how even to do it, how to get my curls back because I damaged them so much. And it was just like my own little personal process that I went through, and it prepared me for my business.
Yeah. So at what point did you say I need to create something that can do my hair, my family's, so really like all the textures out there that can take care of our hair? At what point did you feel like you were going to be the one to do that, and that you had that you would be able to create this brand that could foster that?
Yeah. So something that's very, very Latino that sometimes I feel like, especially in the US, like we forget, like even us within our own communities, I'm like, bruh, you know where that came from? Like a lot of these like trends that people associate are like Western American trends of like farm to table, all natural, organic, like holistic beauty, holistic medicine, whatever. I'm like, there's nothing more like immigrant than all of those things, because like my parents and so many people that come from like immigrant families especially, they grew up in places where like that was their only option.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like my grandma, my parents grew up in, their nearest doctor was like hours away. Like my grandma was the closest thing that whole town had for a doctor. Like she would use herbs and plants and all of these different concoctions, and people would come to her and she would like, you know, really turn to the earth for like their form of medicine. They didn't have like a drugstore, they didn't have like they didn't have any of that. They just had like what they could plant and you know, natural. So
are you first generation American?
Yeah,
in your
I'm
family?
first generation.
Okay, where do your parents come from? Are they coming from different places?
But both my parents came from Mexico.
Okay, both from Mexico.
They both came from Mexico, from like very different areas, but they both, especially they both like grew up very rural, where in areas where like everything that they ate, they literally cropped, and like any animal that ate an animal was because they watched it be born, they watched it grow up, they killed it, they ate it for like a month, it served like, you know, whatever. So they grew up in these kind of environments. And so for me, like it was something very normal, and I was very accustomed to like if my hands were dry, it was like, okay, go get sugar, go get lemon, go get this. Let's make a hand scrub. If my scalp was dry, go cut the aloe vera. We scoop up the gel, da, 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 da. Like my stomach hurts, go get that herb. We're going to make a tea, da, da, da. So, like the notion of like turning to buy something that's like created somewhere else was something new to me. Like I didn't grow up with that notion. So when I started trying to like figure out how to wear my hair, how to style my hair when I was a teenager, it was like ninth grade, literally in high school. It was very normal to me to like turn to the earth in the same way of like my grandma had taught me all these things. I was like, all right, let me go get these oils. Let's see what I can do with these flax seeds. Let me see what I can do with this. And I was making my own concoctions, and took a lot of trial and error and years of me working like different things, but I figured it out. And then I started like all these different people would ask me, mind you, this whole time though, like growing up, I was always the hair girl. Like I was always very drawn to hair, and I was very good at doing hair. So for like most of our families, like quinceañeras or events, like they didn't have no hairdresser. It was me. Like I was the one starting at like 12 years old doing those Selena updos. Like I was like, that was my specialty was up to with like all the little rolls that would like be huge. I would do that. I would do like all kinds of different styles.
Wow.
And that was like my little side hustle. And even when I was in high school, my brother was a senior and a lot of my cousins were older too. And so all of come homecoming and prom, I was a ninth grader, but I was booked all of their hair.
Okay, booked and busy.
Yeah, exactly. So when I started like wearing my own hair natural, it was very normal for people to be like, oh, how do you do that? And then I would do their hair with my concoctions. And then they would wear their hair like, you know, curly or wavy or coily, like however it was their texture. So yeah, so I just kind of kept doing that for like throughout college, throughout grad school, throughout my
What
life.
did you think you were gonna? I saw that you do have a master's degree in business. That was before Rizzo, right?
Yeah, well,
So
I was
what path were you on before?
Isn't that crazy? So like I was always doing, I don't know why I never really pursued cosmetology. I never really pursued that. I was always pursuing like, I always saw that as like a side passion, a side hobby. But I was always just pursuing business. And like back then when I was really young, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I was like, I want to work in politics. I want to be a lawyer. But it's crazy now. I'm like, I needed both. Like, I'm glad I was able to do both simultaneously because I 100% needed both. But yeah, all the while I was in undergrad, grad school, when I was working corporate, I was doing like hair stuff on the side. It always stayed with me, that love for hair.
And so you decide you're going to create a product.
Yeah.
Where did you start?
Yeah, so I had already been doing my own concoction at home. So I had already been like doing stuff. And it was when I first wanted to make it professionally, it was mostly out of like my own convenience. And I thought it was so annoying having to like refrigerate it, having to clear it in Ziploc bags, like it going bad very quickly, like all those different things that come with, you know,
a fresh product.
Something fresh that you make in your kitchen. And then also I was like meeting all these girls that I would call undercover curlies everywhere that I was like helping them with their hair and like writing down everything to do. And it was just like very inconvenient. So I it was a 4-year process of actually figuring out the formulas because I knew what I wanted because I already had tried it. I'd already had that idea. So I was like very picky. So I went through like 2 different labs. I went to so many chemists. I was like spent so much money on the product development end when I first started because I was like, you can't just give me something you have. Like I need custom. I know what I want. Like I know exactly what I need and this is it, you know?
So I'm curious. I think I love that part of your story because you know, it took you 4 years to really develop what you wanted. And this is a good time for us to really go into some insight on what that, now that you've passed that, you have formulations, you have an established process. Talk to us about, give us some advice for someone in the Boss fam, the Black and Shell family, who they have this concept in their head, they're doing things at home, maybe they're working with a person or two. What are some of the things that you think you can tell them to advise them on this part of the process on like how to keep going or what routes to really explore in order to navigate the development part of something that might be new or different for the industry?
Yeah, I think having a clear vision from the very beginning on exactly what you want and trying to get as specific as possible. Like I remember when I was first starting, I was as specific as like, these are the natural ingredients that I would want. Like, these are the benefits that I needed to have. Like, this is the, almost like it would like be like a brief, you know, of like understanding exactly, putting in as much detail as like what I wanted. And then one of my biggest advice too is like, sometimes labs are funny about you meeting directly with the chemist. They kind of like keep the chemist behind the scenes. And I'm like, no. Like, you're not hiding this person from me.
He or she needs to be the bestie.
That's about to be exactly.
Right.
Like, if anything, that is who I want to know the most out of this company. Like, that is who I want to like tell them my recommendations and explain to them firsthand. So my biggest recommendation is like, not necessarily finding a manufacturer or a lab that you like, finding a chemist that you have chemistry with.
Hey, yes, yes.
Because that will just make your life so much easier if y'all like speak the same, are like on the same page and like, you know, are speaking the same thing. Cause that was my biggest thing. When I finally found that chemist who I really vibed with and really understood me, it was like, oh, it was heaven. It was like a
grooving. Yeah.
Exactly.
You're making progress after that. Yeah. So did you ever have doubts about, you know, you're coming from a business background and you're going further into cosmetology, but maybe a part that you're usually behind the chair, you're usually one fixing the hair, making the concoctions too, but now scaling this up. What did you have doubts about your ability to sort of make this commercial type product, or did you feel like you'd be able to push through and make it happen? What was going on in your world at that time? Were there other influences? Kind of talk to me about what was happening.
Yeah. So something that I say is like, whatever is your biggest weakness can also be your biggest strength. It's just how you use it and when it comes to play. And my whole life, like what I thought was my biggest weakness, now looking back, ended up being my biggest strength. So what that was is like, I was always very simple-minded and very present. Like I'm that person that like, I'm a Pisces, and that's like Pisces all over, okay? And we're notorious for almost like living too much in a bubble and in the present, that like we ignore a lot of like things, like thinking of like all the things that could go wrong, thinking about like all the other stuff that could happen. We're just like so present in what's happening. We're like not noticing like some of the other things that like all the different fires that could be caused that we missed. So being like that allowed me that during this process, I was like so stuck in the present. I wasn't even like worried about like, yo, what are you going to do with all this inventory? Like, where are you going to store it? Like, there was just so many things that I look back and I'm like, girl, so many things.
Like, it's a good thing you didn't know, or you wasn't focused on it. Right.
Good thing I didn't psych myself out, but 100%, I was just like so concentrated on like whatever it was that I was like working on at that moment and so present in it that it like nothing else existed. And I that's a thing that one of my weaknesses is that I get so into whatever it is that I'm working on or passionate at the moment that nothing else exists.
Tunnel vision. You're like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, but it's not even something that like I consciously do. It's, if anything, it's something that I'm consciously try to not do, because I'm like, other things exist, bro. Like you can't just be so, but yeah, that was kind of my thing. That
kind of like how you're wired.
That's kind of like how I'm wired, and me now as I'm growing as a you know, entrepreneur now and like a CEO, like it's something that make a conscious effort to step out of, like. And then I have, you know, my brother, like I mentioned, works with me and he's like my right hand. He's kind of like he even tells people, he's like, Julissa's in her bubble right now, but I'm making sure the bubble doesn't get popped. Like I'm making sure it's going in the correct route. But right now, like just let her be in her bubble. I'll take her out when she needs to, you know? So I'm very, very grateful that I have that person that understands me, understands how I work, and understands my strengths and also my weaknesses.
So I actually want to talk about this. This is good. So when you made this product and now you're like, brother, what's brother's name? Tony, join me on this journey. We're making hair products. What is his reaction? How do you actually bring this up to him? And how do you know he's the right guy for the job?
Yeah. So my whole life, my brother was like, my big brother is like my like smartest person I know. Like he's just like, I just remember always looking up to him like, wow, he's so smart. And he's only like almost 3 years older than me, but it's like, no one's smarter than my big brother. Right. Oh, my big brother is so smart, whatever.
So you had a lot of admiration for your brother.
Yeah. 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 My whole life. And we grew up very close, like till this day, like, you know, my brother's my best friend, not just my like business partner. He's my best friend. So, having his support, like I didn't really tell many people, like I didn't really tell anybody when I first was working on it. A
She
lot
was
of people
focused,
found out.
like she said, in my bubble. I didn't even tell people.
I just forgot. But before I went into my bubble, my brother was a one person that I had, because he was always, it was always us. Like it's always been us, like just having each other's back. Like ever since we were little kids, like our parents would always tell him, like, you take care of your sister, you take care of your sister. And then for me, it was like, you can't go if your brother isn't, like, it's almost like we were conditioned to like trust each other and like work together and have each other's back since the day that we were born. So I knew, oh my God, if I have my brother, like I'm going to feel safe. I'm going to feel like seen. I'm going to feel like confident.
And it's going to be successful.
And it's going to be good because I have my brother. So in the beginning, the first year of the business, like he was kind of helping from afar, but he still was full-time in his corporate job. And he worked in business too. And he's more of a numbers guy. Like he's very finance, very like anything to do with numbers. He's just so good at, which is we're
love
just like
to have that person on the team,
so
right?
Well. He's very nerdy, very behind the scenes. He's very antisocial. He's very quiet, very shy, very like, he is that person that if he thrives in an environment of like spreadsheets, like 12 hours, just like no one talk to me, which is crazy because I'm the opposite.
Right.
So he was very like, he was kind of very hands off in the first year because of the first year that I launched, because he was working full time, but I still just, he would just kind of like almost like I don't know, like my partner who I would like talk to,
like
and,
advisor,
like,
almost like
kind of like an advisor, that I would like go to and talk to, etc. But I definitely think like once both of us were able to invest our time full time on the business, and once he was able to come on board and I was on board as well 100%, that's when we really saw the business grow. That's when we really saw.
So when did both of you go full time, and talk to me about that?
2018.
Kind of 2018. Okay. So
so a year.
That was a year after. Wow. That's fast.
Yeah.
Take me through that. We need to understand that. I love that that's possible. Like we know that that's possible. I love to see it happen. I love to hear that happened for someone. So talk to us about what happened in that year that allowed you to be like, we're going for it. We're both going to go full time. Let's do this. Talk to us about some of the milestones within that time period that really showed you we need to keep going on this.
Yeah. I think it just like the sales were there. We kept growing, and I was like, more than anything, I think like I had already done most of the groundwork all those years that I had been like helping people with their hair and like meeting all these different undercover curlies, as I call them, and like styling their hair in the elevator and the dorm rooms and this, like I was like doing a lot of the groundwork for so many years that when the very first day that I launched, like that first week, we got like hundreds of orders from all these people and there were testimonials. Like, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at the UC student conference and you did my hair in the bathroom during lunch. I've been wearing my hair natural since that day. Of course, I'm buying your product. Somebody else. Hey, I met you at the dorm room at the da-da-da-da-da. I met you at this place. Like you did my hair. So like that was all those people that I had helped with their hair over like such a long time span. They all became like our very first customers. They became our first like testimonials. And because they already knew me and they had already experienced me actually like having my fingers in their hair and like helping them with it, they were so like invested in sharing. So like we had from the very beginning, all those customers, they were like the best kind of customers that you can have because they were sending in
it's
photos.
Authentic.
They were posting testimonials. They're like, I met her this day. I used her product right here. This is my before and after. And they were contacting me like, I just felt like they were really invested in,
it sounds like it,
the journey. And they were just like, this is amazing. Like I thought what she had helped me with my hair before was the best. No, this is the best. Like I've never been able to achieve these kind of results. And more than anything, what I tell people, I'm like, the reason why people kept buying and people kept sharing is because the product was good. Like make something bomb that like, you know,
people want to buy.
One try. All it takes is one try and you're hooked. And you know what I mean? Like the product, it's going to sell itself. And like a business is a solution to a problem. And I always tell people, like, if you have a solution, no matter whether you have that capital, whether you have whatever, all the things that are trying to keep you from starting it and getting that solution to people, ignore it. Like if you have a solution and people have a problem, they need it, go give it to them. They'll come. Everything else will align.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you both go on full time and you're able to focus. Talk to us about sort of what was some of the key differences of working on it as you navigated, as you kind of were simultaneously working and being able to be full time. What were some of the major differences in how you had to operate in order to kind of maximize the opportunity of being full time, both of you?
Yeah. So one thing that I like, you know, I think is important to note is there are sacrifices that you're going to have to make. Like you might have to get uncomfortable, you know, like my business is 100% self-funded to this day. And the reason why I was able to do that was because I got uncomfortable. It's not like I was like I literally gave up my apartment that I was living at and I moved back in with my parents.
Yeah.
I was, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to live with my parents. Like, they legit try to give me a 10 p.m. curfew. Like,
oh my gosh.
You know, like, I don't want to do that. But I was, you know, and obviously, like, I have so much privilege in the fact that I have parents that I could go and stay with. But, like, I'm just giving that example to say that, like, there were a lot of decisions that I made that weren't the most, that made me a little bit uncomfortable, but I did it so that I could put money back into the business, invest into the business, have enough saved up so that I could quit my job. I could, you know, so I definitely think that, like, even before you make that decision, there are certain steps and certain other decisions that you're going to have to take to make sure that you're ready for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think in this age of just seeing a lot of entrepreneurs in all types of different scenarios, people can compare themselves and not be sure what their journey is going to look like. No two entrepreneurial journeys look the same. That's partly why I love to share these experiences. But I think what I love a lot about your story is that it is accessible. You looked for ways where you could say, I need to cut back here so I can give more here. And that looked like, hey, I need to save on something fixed like rent. You know, let me lean down the rest of my lifestyle. Also, let me put some time frame to how I move forward so I can, again, make sure I'm making progress. What did some of those other things look like that you sort of told yourself you were going to do in order to make progress in the business growth?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's so many things that I think that sometimes we have the misconception that in order to start a business, you have to come in with a lot of money. And there's this like idea that you need investors, or like, it's like impossible to grow if you're self-funded. And like, there are other ways, you know, there's literally so many types of loans, small business loans that you can take out with very low interest rates. There are grants that you can apply to. And like, I've literally done all of the above. Like as soon as like we started getting some sales, like, and we started like, you know, building up that history, we went to the bank and I got a line of credit and was like, okay, I might not take this out right now, but it's there at any moment that I need some money. Yeah. I'm not going to put myself in a situation where like, I can't keep going because I don't have money. Okay, I have that line of credit there. All right. And then as I'm growing, it's like, okay, I'm going to go and increase my line of credit. Okay, I'm going to take this out. And you have to be aware of your cash flow, especially if you're going to be self-funded. It's possible. You just have to be aware of your cash flow. You have to be very a stickler on like,
I'm very meticulous on what's coming in and going out.
Very meticulous. And then also really understand what opportunities are actual opportunities and what is not an opportunity for your business. Because again, sometimes we try to compare ourselves with like these businesses that are like Fortune 500 companies that are, you know, have all the money in the world. And we see a lot of what they do and we think like, oh, we should emulate that and we should do that. What is an opportunity for someone like that is not necessarily an opportunity for you. And maybe it's not the best use of your money.
Yeah.
So like in the beginning, I remember we got like an opportunity to do a gifting and have a space at like some fancy award show. And they were like, it's going to be free. All you have to do is just like, you know, give out the samples. And I sat there and thought, I'm like, they made it sound like such a big opportunity. And I'm sure every other so many other companies pay a lot of money to be there. And I'm like, I'm a small business. I am not one of these big companies.
Right.
I have precious inventory. Every single one of those units is like my own freaking money that I worked so hard on.
Yeah.
And I need to get a return on it. Is the best use of that inventory going to some fancy award show, like, doing
Right.
that? Or is it for me to like maybe gift a small section to like actual customers that are going to be creating content or, you know, building the brand, whatever. So I think there's like so many moments where I had to like realign in my own thinking.
Yeah. I love that too. That discernment around like where to put your investment. And again, going back to not necessarily looking so much at competition, particularly sometimes the people that are not in the same business stage as you. To your point, you literally can go further making a different investment decision than looking at what did XYZ brand do, who's at a different stage than you. You have different goals. So it's going down to what are my objectives? Is it to increase my volume, raise more awareness, drive trial, collaborate more? Theirs is going to be something different.
Exactly.
Right? Based on that stage or what season they are in. They might be trying to feature a new product and putting all their money into showing this new innovation. So you can look at what others are doing so that you learn and have insights, but you have to be very prescriptive for your own situation and think about that. Because the example you gave is awesome. Hey, I don't know if these stars care about my product. It's not the moment of, it's not the use occasion that they're looking for. They're just getting all these things. They might throw away the bag, but if I give it to influencers who are trying to review a product or looking for a style, or if I give a free product as a promotion to honor the customers that already came to me, that's actually giving, driving more brand affinity for me and creating more trust with my customers than doing something that I could just chat about because it sounds cool. Like, oh, I was at Met Gala in the Met bag. Okay.
Exactly. It's about knowing your customer.
I love that example. That makes sense.
Making the best decision for your unique business and stop comparing yourself to situations and businesses that have nothing to do with you.
Yeah, no, great point there. So talk to us about some other milestones. You got started. Going full-time is a milestone for you and your brother. What are some other ones that you would say? I have one in mind as well, but I want to hear some other business milestones that you've experienced.
I think the most recent one that I'm like really excited about was having Mexico be the first country outside of the US where we sell in a major retailer. And not only that, but like at launch, we became the first Mexican owned curly hair care line to be sold at Sally Beauty Mexico. And just like having, and it's just like it's just like a different feeling when it's like that same city, that same area where my dad at 10 years old was like working as a shoe shiner in the streets and like for 10 cents or whatever, like my product is there, you know what I mean? Wow. Like that's huge for me. And huge. And I think for my parents too, it's just like a very proud moment. They're so cute. Like the weekend, so this just happened like very recently, the weekend that we launched into Sally Beauty Mexico, they literally drove all the way to Tijuana, just across the border to go see it in person. And I was like, you guys are the cutest.
So I love that support too. You really have the support of your family, and what a full circle moment. Yeah. Getting into Mexico. You also recently got into Ulta within the US. Yes. Another big deal, how was that for you?
The first Latina owned curly hair care line to launch
in Ulta, right? So you're just hitting you're historic at this point. And I don't think you're slowing down anytime soon. I think how you started also really tells a lot. It gives me a lot of insight on why your community is so engaged, because they started off so engaged. They started off craving your products, knowing you, and like a lot of word of mouth saying this worked for me. And so that reflects in the community you have today. They're all about Rizo, so that story makes sense here. You mentioned undercover curlies a lot. As times have changed, are you still noticing there's a lot of undercover curlies, or are they sort of audacious, proud, and bold about their curls? What are you experiencing? I know the Black community has had its own sort of rebirth of hair, going from similar to you, straight hair, to, embracing natural hair and having these products come in to support us. Have you seen that also in the Latin community and others even?
Something that's really interesting is that I didn't realize is that, the majority of our customers still are people that have never worn their hair curly before, or have literally been straightening their hair, and they come to us with very damaged hair, the ends are still straight, they're pretty much so accustomed to straightening their hair, and they are trying to figure out that process. So that's still something that just blows my mind, because I'm at what point is it gonna, is everyone already, already with that journey? But another big moment that brought along a lot of people wanting to wear their hair natural again was quarantine. The amount of people that decided to stop, damaging their hair and doing these things,
very highly processed, heat processed styles. Yeah.
Exactly. During quarantine, because they couldn't go to salons, they couldn't go and do these things. It
was the perfect time to try.
Exactly. Yeah. They didn't have to go and look a certain way, and those expectations weren't there. So they decided to okay, let me see what's under here. And we had a lot of people that the number one thing that we do on our social platforms is education. We do it in Spanish, we do it in English. It's just helping people and giving information and helping them through that process, teaching them. They'll send us photos of their hair, and we're no, this is how you do it. That's wrong. You're using too much of this, whatever. And our job was just even more, even more of an importance, because we had a lot of people that were coming to us with questions because it was their first time during quarantine.
Yeah, so that's another great point of entry, really getting folks as they're new and being their trusted source of information on how to care for their hair. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So how did it feel getting into Sally Beauty and Ulta? And then behind that, what was the amount of work that it took? What was the type of work, and what of the work surprised you in terms of maybe you may not have been ready, or you were ready, but it was still a lot? What can we expect if we one day want to dream of being in some of these spaces? From your experience, talk about that.
I think, first and foremost, I always say, if I'm not having fun, if we're not having fun, it's not worth it. We have to find moments and ways to enjoy the process, enjoy the work that we are doing. Otherwise, it's if we're not having fun, the customer is going to feel that too. And especially with how we introduce these moments to the customer, I'm let's do something we're going to enjoy creating. Let's
most fun watching the story. So I know you had fun being there. Okay.
So for example, with Ulta, I don't know if you saw the video, the content.
Yes, girl, you were amazing. It's shut the street down, the horse.
So for Ulta,
oh my gosh, she came on a horse.
Since we were the first Latina owned curly hair care line to launch, we were like, bruh, like I'm about to show up then. So I literally showed up to Ulta on a horse with a mariachi band, with my cousins. My cousins have La Michoacana, Boyle Heights. It's like a paleta shop
Yes.
that's like popular in that area. So they
Wait,
rolled
your
up with
cousins own
paleta
that?
carts. Yeah, those are my cousins. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My cousins own that. And so like, that's why they're like always around. People are always like, why are you always with paletas? I'm like, those are my cousins.
Yes.
Those are my cousins. So yeah, so like they rolled up with the paleta cards. Like we had a whole like dance party. We were taking shots of Don Julio on the horse with the, like, it was like, but that
It
was
was a
just
vibe, an
how my
entire
family
cultural
is.
vibe.
Like, we come together and we just like turn up. Like anybody that lived anywhere near us, they know we are
turn
just,
up.
they hate the noise. They're like, oh, again, it is 10 a.m. Like, are you serious?
Yes.
So that was like a lot of that content. And then for Sally Beauty, we did our announcement. I don't know if you saw the Selena video.
I missed that one.
Okay,
I gotta go to highlights.
Yeah, you're gonna have to watch it. But so pretty much for that moment, the way that we announced it was, I'm obsessed with Selena. I was actually in the Selena dance crew when I was a little girl, and I was obsessed. But so the scene, I don't know if you're familiar with the scene of the movie when it's her first time going to Mexico and she's nervous about her Spanish not being perfect. And she's like, oh, I'm going to mess up. Yeah. So then she walks in and she's like so nice to all the press and she's like giving him a kiss on the cheek. Yeah. And then she goes to the top and they ask her a question and they were like, how do you feel about being in Mexico? And she's like, me siento muy, and she's like, excited, because she forgot how to say it in Spanish.
Right.
So I was like, that's me. That's how I feel. Mm-hmm. So then we recreated that with like all of our team. So it was hilarious because like, instead of like an actual sound boom, we used like literally a duster. Like we told everyone to come in. Like I dressed up as Selena. It was like a whole moment. So we recreated that and people thought it was.
You're also so creative though. Because like coming up with the whole announcement ideas, like you're so creative. And for me, that shows like, this is what, when you do it for the culture and when you're bringing your background, your vision to life, you get something different. It was far from cookie cutter, and that's what was so exciting about it.
Yeah. And then that's what
made you feel like, something.
Yeah. Well, that's a thing. Like what I tell people, I'm like, true creativity isn't having like thousands of dollars to look beautiful on the first day of school. True creativity is when you literally have $20 and you got to figure it out to look fly on the first day of school. So you go to a Dollar Tree, you ask your cousin, you make these shoelaces, you add rhinestones on it and you make it work. And that is where all those trends happen. That is where like you see that true creativity, and you see it time and time again. Like a lot of like high fashion, where did they go to for inspiration? Is like literally like
a little neighborhood somewhere,
poor people of color,
right?
Like in neighborhoods of people of color, like you'll see so much of like those trends, and that's really where all these like trends and true creativity.
So when we do it, it's ghetto. When they do it, it's creative.
Exactly, but it's like
innovative.
Exactly, but where that idea came from. So what I always say with my business, I'm like, I'm not afraid of like making up in creativity what I lack in marketing, because I've been doing that my whole life. Like I've been having to figure out ways to level up, but have very limited resources. And I'm very used to seeing my community do that. I'm very used to seeing like all the neighborhoods that I grew up in, like those were the examples. People had to get creative, and I'm no stranger to that.
Yeah, well, we love seeing it. Your creativity is inspiring. So something that I'm curious about is, you were in business, you created the brand, you're building. I want to talk about your experience as a leader running this company internally as it's growing so fast. How has doing this challenged your leadership skills? So it's one thing to make a product, it's another thing to have to start running a ship and telling other people what to do as it expands. How is that going?
Honestly,
how is it stretching you? What are you learning? Tell us.
Managing human beings is like the hardest thing in the world. Like there is like nothing harder. And it's just it's hard. Like anyone who's ever managed people, it's like a whole different skill set. And I'm learning all the time. Like I literally just bought like all these different books that I'm constantly trying to learn and grow and like work with my team and like, please let me know where my opportunities are, like we're growing, we're figuring it out together, but definitely I think my biggest advice on that end is like to check your ego and be willing to be flexible and be willing to like grow with the team and like be willing to take constructive criticism and be willing to like humble down and be like, I don't know this, but I'm gonna try to figure it out, and like just being patient with yourself and like trusting that even if maybe you don't have the answer at that moment, you have the ability to figure it out, So I think it's like definitely starting a business has been the most humbling experience ever. And it's if I had, it's constantly challenges you to like check that ego, check that evil and humble down,
Yeah. In this whole process, have you had any mentors or found good resources that have really helped you through some of the growth and decision making?
Yeah. Honestly, like I'm such a proponent of like podcasts and like books and figure out that niche, like listen to other entrepreneurs. And like, even if you don't know them directly, like there are so many resources out there. It's like Google search away. One of my favorite business books is called Rework. And I'm constantly driving inspiration from like a lot of these books. Some of them I won't agree with everything, but like sometimes I'm like, oh, it's great to know, like, and it sparks an idea. There's so many different podcasts too, like how I built this with Guy Raz. Like that's a great one. Obviously, there's just so many. There's like there's just so many little clips and things that you can search, like in this podcast, like listening to other episodes that might relate to what you're going through. I definitely think that like constantly feeding that is so essential for my own growth as well and for the business.
I think that is so important to surround yourself with that type of content, information. When it comes to other entrepreneurs, have you found a circle of folks that are building things, that are kind of going through some of the same milestones as you? What's been that experience? Has it been lonely, or are you actually finding people doing things with you?
Yeah, no, I definitely have a bunch of friends that like a lot of day ones actually, that like we've seen each other, really put our sleeves up and like go and pursue our dreams. And it's really inspiring to see things that they've been able to build and like, help each other with resources, talk to each other, like answer each other's question, like just vent, etc. So it's definitely really nice to have friends that are also like building things or like whatever their career journey is, but to see them like working hard towards their goals is so amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Talk to us about the next frontier for Rizos Curls. You are now in retail. You're available lots of places. You're available direct to consumer. So if anyone is going through this journey, wanting healthy, natural, cruelty-free products, like Rizos Curls is here for you. What can we continue to expect from this brand?
Innovation. So that's always been one of my favorite parts of the business, is like the product development piece. And quarantine kind of like forced me to go back to that a lot and really focus in on that. And I'm really grateful for it because I'm so excited about some of the cool innovation and new products that we are going to be launching by the end of the year. And throughout next year. Yeah. So like expect new products and really cool, exciting things.
Awesome. And I'm curious, so you've had a chance to kind of experience several retailers in specialty space, in the mass space, and you're also in e-commerce. As an overall, what has been some of your experience or insights on kind of the differences, what it's like when you're new versus like when you've been there for a little while? What are some things that you could share with the Boss Fam on? Because I think there's a lot of people that do want to be in those spaces, but don't really know what is it like to be there. You've had a number of experiences, so talk to us a little bit about how to think about that.
So for me, to be completely honest, like my direct to consumer business is like our bread and butter. Like that needs to be healthy, and that's what pretty much funds our large retail business. And like I almost think of it as like two very different businesses, and I make sure like that ratio of like, is it 50-50 at the time? Is it 60-40? Like I'm like making sure that I'm keeping it balanced, because I'm well aware that, again, as a self-funded, if I had investors, it wouldn't matter. But because I am self-funded, I am well aware of how long it takes retailers to pay you back, of how much they'll send you an order, and how much money it takes to like actually go and pay and source everything and create this order, and you're not getting paid for quite a while. So I understand that this business, direct to consumer business, is funding all of that. And I need to always be making sure that as I'm growing this is still healthy. So like, I guess my biggest thing is like, sometimes people have different, like maybe they'll be like, I'm going to be self-funded, but I'm going to go straight into retail. And I'm just like, good luck, like balancing that. And like, there's so, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, for me, I learned that like, it's just so much it's just so much easier when it's like you can control it, you know?
Right. So let's talk about that. So the benefits really of direct consumer is that control. You get to control the whole experience, you get your customers' information. So, you know, so also your innovation cycle could be way short. You can make something tomorrow and be like, all right, I can get that to you 2 days later, however fast shipping.
You own that. It's like, there's so much power in that. And also I think people forget that like being small is an advantage a lot of the time. Being small, it's like you're flexible. You can stay on trend. You can implement things so much faster than like bigger businesses. You can turn things around. Like no one, oh my God, it's like, life is so much, like so many things are so
also, you could be kind of, your margins could be better direct to consumer, because you're paying one less person, you're paying one less, or not even one, you're paying few less people, no distributor in this case, the retailer, you're not. So there are advantages of being in mass retail. You get tremendous awareness, crazy accessibility and exposure. So none is necessarily better than the other. Well, yes.
They're just different.
They're different. So for your business,
as different
phases. Yes.
Yeah, I just think of it as like two different separate things.
Yeah. And you have your way of how they integrate in order for you to meet your goals. You're getting the exposure, you're being highly accessible, while you also manage your profitability, manage being agile, maybe sometimes launch something just to your website and your customers, things like that. So talk to us about some strategies that have worked for you over the years that really involve you taking care of your customers and managing that balance that we just talked about.
Yeah, I think that like prioritizing like our customer and our direct to consumer business is essential in like really having that trust and that control. Cause like I can't control so many things on like the retail space, once it leaves our warehouse, it's like, it's theirs, they own it. And with us, it's like, we own every bit of it, So I think just like understanding that and making sure that process is never, we never take it for granted and we never neglect it has been really essential.
Yeah. Cool. So, I mean, you gave us a lot of things to think about, and we're definitely excited for what Rizo is doing. We're going to continue to support and definitely looking out for this innovation coming down the line. I feel like you got your juices flowing during COVID. So there we have some great things to look out for. And for those that haven't tried Rizos yet, this is your chance. This is your chance. So we always ask, what does it mean to be Black on shelf? what does it mean to be Latina on shelf? I would love to know, you told us a lot about your background and how this is a big moment for you. So now that you've culminated this year with a number of successes and highlights, what does it mean for you to be Latina on shelf?
I just feel so proud. I feel like it's a win for not just me, but like my community, people that come from a similar background, from, even like self-funded, like first generation, like whether they're Latino or not. Like, I just think it's just like power to the underdog and that the indie brand. So yeah, I think it means so much. It's much bigger than me, it's just like, I'm just kind of like the puppet here, and I'm just, maybe I'll be the first in a lot of these spaces, but I certainly will not be the last.
Definitely. And, you mentioned to us a number of times that you are self-funded. Was that something intentional you really wanted to retain? Or is that just how things have happened and you've been able to bootstrap? Was that like an intentional decision?
Yeah, it was definitely no, it was definitely a strategy, because that was like my company like mission was, I call them the 3 C's: curls, community, culture. And all 3 are very important and equally important. And I think a lot of investors, especially because I knew I was building something new, I knew that I was building a type of business that wasn't out there yet. I knew that the way that I wanted to do business and the way that I wanted to, like, the decisions I wanted to make and the type of business I wanted, it's like, they're not going to understand that yet because the market isn't there yet. I didn't want to adhere to any corporate norms. I don't want to hear none of that. It's like, I want to do business my way. All these rules and things that y'all have over here that don't make any sense. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing any of that. So I knew that about myself. And I knew that, like, if I have investors, it's going to be when I have the power. It's when I've already proved to you and showed you could do business my way. You can do business and still be happy. You can do business and still have a work-life balance. You can work smarter, not harder. You can, like, have a team that, like, actually likes to do their job. And, like, so yeah, there was just a lot of decisions that I was like, I don't know if they're ready for that yet.
Yeah. So you think you might want to consider it later in the future, is what you're open to?
Yeah, maybe later in the future. But I think at that point I have already kind of like proved that I know what I'm talking about and I know what I'm doing. So I feel like I'll have more leverage.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I love that strategy. And I think it's just another reminder that is an option. You had to make sacrifices, but you're going to anyway if you're doing this journey. And this was the option that you chose, and it's really working out for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
There was one more thing. We did talk about funding.
By the way, I do have to go in like 3 minutes.
Okay. So we're going to wrap it up there and let people know where they can follow you. So tell us where on Instagram and your website.
Yeah, so you can follow Rizos Curls on Instagram at Rizos Curls, and on TikTok at Rizos Curls Hair.
TikTok, yes.
TikTok, yes. Our TikTok is popping. Like, we have so much fun creating TikToks. And also our website, rizoscurls.com.
Perfect. And we're going to have all of that in the show notes. Visit their TikTok and see the popping videos, see the popping content there. Thank you so much for coming, Julissa. You really are an inspiring, engaging, exciting entrepreneur. We're excited to watch, and we're so proud of all the things you've already done. It's so inspiring for us. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I'm honored.
Of course.